Greetings. Welcome to this online video class for supporting self-regulation for student success in Schoology. My name is Randy Hall, and I want to thank you for taking time to join me today. Teachers familiar with self-regulation will recall its reference to the ability to control one's body and self, manage one's emotions, and maintain focus and attention. When we think about student success in our classrooms, we know that our students' abilities to manage and navigate their own learning experiences requires our attention, support, nurturing, and teaching. Now, I'm not pretending to offer any insights on guiding student emotions or behavior, but instead this class aims to highlight some tools and features in Schoology that we can use to help students plan and set goals, monitor their performance, and we can weave them into our learning conferences and conversations with our students. So here are our guiding questions for our time together. Where do students find their calendar, upcoming and reminder lists? Why is it that I should think about using dates not only for assignments and discussions, but also for folders? How can I enable students to monitor their own progress and provide an easy way for me to get an at-a-glance view of progress across all the students in my class? When might I want to lock assignments and/or discussions? And finally, how do I ensure students aren't overloaded with too much classwork in a combination from my class and all of their other teachers? So let's get started. Where do students find their calendar and upcoming and reminder lists, both in a web browser and on an iPad or iPhone using the Schoology mobile app? Here's a quick tip. As you go through the video, if you'd like to fast forward or rewind, look for a chalkboard icon page like this one. So here's a screenshot when a student is logged into Schoology using a web browser like Firefox, Chrome, or Safari. And each time they log in, they'll land right on the recent activity page. You can think of recent activity as the home page. Every user lands on the recent activity page when they first log into their Schoology account. Now, when students have any overdue assignments that they haven't yet turned in, on the right, they'll see this little overdue section. Any assignments, discussions, assessments that teachers have scheduled in the future will also appear in the bottom right in an upcoming list. Now, if a student is using the Schoology mobile app on an iPad or iPhone, their home screen is kind of similar where they see the recent activity feed, but in the lower right corner they'll also have a calendar icon which will take them and show them the upcoming list. The overdue list isn't currently displayed in the Schoology mobile app. Students also can click on their navigation icon in the upper left of the Schoology mobile app and where they can access their messages and notifications, courses and groups. But here you can see they can also get direct access to their full calendar. Now, when students navigate to an actual course, they'll also have an upcoming tab that will feature the upcoming assignments just for that course. When I'm working with students who need focused attention and avoid distractions, I will sometimes coach them to go to their class and look for the upcoming list rather than looking at the upcoming list on their home screen, because that might often have a whole volume of upcoming assignments from all of their classes. So to help focus students' attention and avoid distraction, I'll often recommend that they go to their class first and then look at the upcoming list. Now on an iPhone in the Schoology mobile app, since it's a smaller screen, Schoology just moves the icons to the bottom. And so here you can see that when students go to their class in the Schoology mobile app on an iPhone, the upcoming calendar tab is along that bottom row of icons along with their materials, updates, grades, and members. So here's an example. I'm currently logged in as Ann Teak, a student in our school, and as you can see on her home page, she lands on the recent activity. Over here on the right, she's got a list of some overdue assignments, and Schoology will tell me which course or class those assignments are related to. Underneath that, I will also have the list of upcoming assignments, test quizzes, assessments, or discussions from all of my classes. Now, a student can actually click through right on any one of these posted activities, and they'll be taken to that particular assignment, discussion, or assessment in their related course. Now, in addition to the upcoming and the overdue lists, don't forget that every user in Schoology has their own master calendar. So here is Anne's aggregate calendar of all of the assignments posted on her classes. She can also use the little drop-down list to narrow or filter. She can personalize it by assigning different colors to certain classes, so it'll be kind of easy to view materials at a glance. Now here is Anne logged into the Schoology mobile app on an iPad. As you can see in the top left navigation panel, she can go to her home page, which is the recent activity feed of updates, news, and reminders. And then in the lower right, can tap on the calendar icon to be taken to that same upcoming list of scheduled assignments and activities. When Anne goes to one of her specific courses, over here on the right edge is the upcoming tab, which will have all the posted assignments and discussions that that teacher has posted on her class. So consider taking a moment now to pause the video and log into your Schoology account. Can you find your upcoming and possibly overdue lists on the recent activity page? Can you find your full monthly calendar view and see all of the courses and activities assignments aggregated into one calendar where you can turn on and off or color code? If you've never tried the Schoology mobile app, set it up on your iPhone or iPad or Android device, log into your account, and check for the course upcoming lists, that home screen calendar view, and how to navigate to all your different courses. Why should I use dates not only for assignments and discussions, but also for folders? It's very common when teachers were building our course materials, we're creating assignments and discussions, tests, quizzes, or assessments, and we schedule them with due dates that'll automatically populate on student calendars. But if you've never had a chance to look at how you can assign dates to folders, there are a number of benefits for both teachers and students. Let's take a look. So here I am in my course as a teacher. Now, as you're probably familiar with already, when we're creating assignments, it's very easy for us to schedule due dates and/or times. But let's take a look now at some examples where I have this folder, might be for a week or a unit or a chapter's worth of materials, and then I have some other subfolders. When I go to edit this Set 1 folder, Schoology gives me this date option and availability choices. When I assign a date to a folder, it's kind of like this week or on these particular days, this is the set of materials we're going to be learning about together. If I assign a start date and then add an end date, so let's say we're going to be focusing on this set of materials for all of this week. When I add dates, here's what happens automatically for students and parents. Whenever they look at the monthly calendar view, that folder title gets displayed on their calendar across the date or dates that I've set for it. They can also click right on the folder and go immediately to view that item of materials, lessons, and activities. So it's as easy as that. I can either choose to just set a single start date. So let's say, for example, this Set 2 lesson we're going to be doing on Wednesday. And then now on the calendar for the class, that will show up just on that day. The other visibility and availability options give me some powerful controls. And let's take a look at each. Now, very commonly I might say, okay, I've created this folder of materials, and let's say it's going to be for the 25th through the 27th. Published means visible to students. So as you know, any materials you create and you set them as published will be visible to all members of your course. However, Schoology also gives me the ability to create materials and keep them hidden until such a time that I'm ready to kind of release them or publish them for students. So if I set this folder up right now as unpublished, I could continue building, creating, and adding assignments and lessons inside the folder, and I wouldn't have to worry about setting the publishing settings because the folder is set to unpublished. Now these last two options give me some extra power. The third one, I like to think about this one as the kind of set it and forget it. Publish on start date. If I set the start date to a date in the future, and maybe a particular time, and if I set the availability to publish on start date, Schoology will automatically change it from unpublished, which it is now, to published on that start date and time. Remember, whenever I publish new materials in my course, students and parents automatically receive a Schoology alert and notification. So it can be a way that I can have materials hidden until I'm ready to make them visible by setting the publish on start date. Now the last option, publish during date range, will also affect the published and unpublished state of the materials. Remember, published is viewable to students, unpublished is hidden from students. Right now I have this folder set with the start date May 25th at 7:30 and let's say May 27th at 4 p.m. When I set the availability choice published during date range, right now it will be unpublished because it's prior to the 25th. But on May 25th at 7:30 a.m., Schoology will automatically change it to published. After May 27th at 4 p.m., Schoology will then automatically unpublish it and hide it from student view. So that third option I need to be a little careful with. Sometimes I know some teachers will set this one accidentally and then the end date will pass and it'll go hidden and their students won't be able to go back to it to find that previous materials. So if you're going to use the start date and end dates to have it featured on your calendar, I think a lot of times you'll probably just want to use the publish on start date if it's a day in the future and you want to have it hidden for now and then auto go live, or you can just leave it published. And no matter what you set, the dates, it'll always be visible, but it'll only be featured on the calendar during those particular dates. So keep up your practices with assigning due dates for assignments, discussions, test quizzes, and assessments, but you might give some thought to how you can creatively use dates with folders to give students and parents that extra bit of information if they commonly navigate through the calendar. Take a moment now to pause the video, log into your Schoology account, and here are 3 kind of learning tasks. Make sure you feel comfortable and confident with knowing where to find your calendar, upcoming and reminder lists. Take a look in your course and go to the edit icon for some of your folders. Make sure you know where those start date, end date, and availability options are. And of course, if you need some more practice with assigning due dates for assignments and discussions, take a moment now to make sure you know where those are. How can I enable students to monitor their own progress? A hidden tool and feature in Schoology is something they call completion rules, or student completion. Here are a couple of screenshots. In the top right is the student completion tool that a teacher uses to create rules. And then in the bottom right is kind of a student progress tool that automatically becomes available when I as a teacher set up completion rules in my course. Here's the big idea. I have a folder of materials. In this example in the upper right, I've posted a couple of web links. I have an assessment, a discussion, a page, and then an assignment. Completion rules allow me, the teacher, to assign completion targets. As you can see in the screenshot example, I've set it up so that students must view the item for each of the links. For the assessment, the step 4, check in on hero's journey, as a digital assessment, I put that the completion rule is that they must score at least 10 out of 10. The discussion, they have to post a comment or reply. The step 6 page, where I have just some posted text and information, again is another view item. And then finally, for the assignment, they actually must make a submission or turn something in. Let's take a look at this in an actual course by a teacher. So here I am back in my course as a teacher. Now in this folder, I've got this set to collection of a page, an assignment, a discussion, and a digital assessment. Completion rules give a lot of power for a little bit of effort. Now when you want to set up completion rules, the first Randy tip to remember is that you always set completion rules for a folder. And on any folder on your course, under the Options button, you will find the Student Completion option. And here's how it works. I begin by adding requirements, which are basically the rules. I will choose the material item from this folder, and then a related member must rule. Then, if I want to add other completion rules, I'll click Add Requirement, choose the next material, and then choose a possible member must rule. Now notice here I get different options than I did for the first one. That's because every different type of course material will likely have different member must completion options. So for example, a page, which I use for a page of text or pictures or an embedded video, the only really thing I can track is that students click on it and view it. But for an assignment in Schoology, I can say they must view the item, or they must make a submission, meaning they have to turn something in using the Submit Assignment button. I can continue then adding requirements to other materials. Here's a discussion. Notice the difference here of options, and I'm just going to choose Post a Comment and Reply. And then for the last one, I can choose, this is a digital assessment, and they must make a submission, or depending upon how I've set it up, I could do a score at least. So when I set up completion rules, I use the Add Requirement button link, and I choose a material item and then a related member must action. Now it's my choice. I do not have to assign a completion rule to every material in the folder. Also, I can assign multiple rules to one item. For example, remember this assignment? I could add one completion rule is that you have to view it. I could then add another completion rule for the same material, that is, must make a submission. Now when I create completion rules, the biggest benefit is that Schoology will automatically make this new button called Student Progress show up, both for the student as well as me, the teacher. This student progress, think of it kind of like a dashboard where I can see all of the students in the course and their degree or percentage of completion of how far they've made it through some of the different course materials. I could click on a student, and then if there are other subfolders, continue clicking through to get to the dashboard for each student. Students would have their own student progress, which again would also give them their insight and view into what they've completed and what they have coming up to complete. So here's an example. I've gone over now to Ann Teak, that student, who is a member of this class. And when Ann clicks on her student progress, we can see that the teacher has set up completion rules for this folder, the activity packet, and a subfolder within there. And she hasn't yet begun any of those activities. But for the Try This folder, she's completed each of the first 3 items. You see the green check marks. And then she still has to work on the final 2. So as a teacher, when I create completion rules, I'm kind of automatically giving students their own planner. That's a perfect way to help students plan and set goals, When I have maybe weekly one-on-one student conferences, I can help students self-manage and self-regulate their own learning. In our conversation, when I ask about, well, let's set a goal for the week. Which of the remaining in-progress items do you want to accomplish by tomorrow or by the end of the week? So take advantage of setting completion rules, and it'll automatically give you, the teacher, that at-a-glance status view of progress for all your students. And then for each individual student, it automatically generates their own individual student progress planner tool. Now here are a couple of important tips for teachers when you want to start using completion rules. First, I would recommend that you start small. Don't try to do completion rules for all of your folders. Choose one week that's coming up, or one chapter or unit of folders. Also, when you go to start creating completion rules for the first time, always go inside one of your existing folders from your main materials page. So if I go inside this folder, and then I can go inside another subfolder, use the options student completion there. I would recommend for beginners that you avoid, on the main materials page, using the options student completion here. These options are for some more advanced uses of the Schoology course materials for complete online learning for students. So always remember, go into a folder first, whether it's the main folder or even subfolders, and look for the options student completion there. Also, when you start using completion rules, you have to think a little bit differently about setting due dates for assignments, discussions, or assessments. Because when I set up completion rules, go in here, you might have noticed this. If I go to add a requirement, and this discussion I had already set a due date for when I created it, but when I start using completion rules, notice how Schoology is going to tell me that the due dates for items will be removed. Now, that's okay, because I can enter the due dates just in a different method. So when you start using completion rules, create your folders and your materials and assign the completion rule requirements. Don't enter the due dates at that time. After you set up the completion rules, on the left, go to your gradebook, and we're going to use Schoology's bulk edit tool. If you've never discovered this page, this is going to be a real find as well. The bulk edit tool would then allow me to go through and assign due dates to those items. So here's that discussion. I want that due on Thursday by 2 p.m. The try it out, turn it in, also the 21st at 1:30 p.m. So you use the bulk edit tool to then enter your due dates for those items that have completion rules. Make sure you save the changes at the bottom. So again, when you start creating completion rules on folders on your course, I recommend you create the folders, create your materials, but don't enter due dates if you know you're going to want to use completion rules for them. Assign and create the completion rules for that folder of materials. Remember, you don't have to assign a rule to every material. Then, to enter the due dates, on the left, go to your gradebook, use the three dots menu in the upper right, and the bulk edit tool to then enter those due dates for those items. So that's it for completion rules. If this is the first time you're aware of them, I might recommend you also look on the Schoology Help Center. They've got some great documentation and how-to guides and videos. But just remember, completion rules will give your students the ability to proceed at their own pace. They can monitor their own progress, and they can set personal goals and gauge their achievements. As a teacher, it also helps me because it gives me an at-a-glance view of all the students in my class and the percentage progress they're making in the course materials. Now here's some of those important reminders. Remember, when you create or edit completion rules, if you've previously entered due dates, they're going to be removed. So what I offer is kind of a Randy recipe for ease and efficiency. First, create your folder and materials with new due dates entered. Second, then assign your completion rules for one or a couple or more of the materials. Then you're going to use the gradebook bulk edit tool to enter the due dates for those related materials. When might I want to lock an assignment or discussion? Let's take a look at where I can find the lock option for assignments. So I'm going to go in to edit this assignment I've created. And down here at the bottom, this row of teeny tiny little icons, we will find the little padlock lock item. When I turn that on, I will get a new option for locking to be unlocked, lock on, or lock now. Now, locking for an assignment. Locking an assignment basically disables the ability for a student to turn in a submission. Basically, the submit assignment button won't function. When an assignment is created and submissions are enabled and it's unlocked, that's when students go to the assignment, click the submit assignment button, and turn in their work. However, there are a couple of common practices I've learned from teachers about when they want to find and use the lock option. For example, here's an assignment I've given to students and it's due on the 20th. I typically in my classroom might give students a flexible policy for late submissions of about a week. But then after that week, I might want to lock it to prevent any further submissions. That's when I could use the locking option, lock on, and then set that future date. So if I go back and let's see, so May 20th, and then the 29th would be the final option they would have to turn in before Schoology will lock the submission tool altogether. Now the other option, lock now, let's say this assignment is for an end of unit project at the end of the month. I'm going to post the assignment with all of the information, materials, and resources that students will need, all of the instructions and requirements, but it's not due until the end of the month. And for the next couple of weeks, they should be working on some of the other materials and reading some of the resources that I provided. So to prevent Mark, who might be a student in my class, who's always the eager beaver, of trying to turn in that assignment tomorrow, when I create it, I can turn on the lock and I can lock it now, but I still have it published. That makes it visible to students so they can see all the information and materials, but it's just locked right now because I don't want students to make early submissions. And then I could unlock it about a week before or when I'm ready to open it up to start collecting submissions from students. So the lock tool is available both for assignments and for discussions. So here in the discussion, when I turn on the lock icon again, I might leave it unlocked, or I could lock it on a future date, or even I could set it to a past date, or I could lock it right now at this moment of time. Or if it's locked and I want to come and unlock it, I can do that manually at any time by just coming back to edit the discussion or assignment and either turn off the lock, the padlock, or set it to unlocked. And that's it. Consider taking a moment now to pause the video, go into your Schoology account. For an assignment or discussion, go into the edit view. Make sure you can locate where that lock option is and know where the drop-down choices are. Go into a folder or a subfolder on your course. Look for that options button and the student completion tool. How do I ensure students aren't overloaded with too much classwork? In my Schoology course, the workload planning area on the left gives me an interesting insight into students' assignments and activities in all of their other courses. Let's take a look. Here I am in my course. On the far left, I will find the Workload Planning page. The Workload Planning will allow me to say, Schoology, set as a threshold students who have 2 or more, or 5 or more, or 8 or more assignments or activities across all of their other classes. So I set a threshold kind of criticality that I want to have Schoology highlight for me. Then, in the list of my students, I would see a snapshot of all of the different activities and assignments they have in their classes. And if any students have more than my threshold, they will be orange. If they have more than 2 greater than my threshold, they would be in red. So I can change the different threshold options. Notice how the color coding key will update automatically. Using the workload planning tool can give me great insight into the different activities or assignments across all of my students' classes. So I would actually see a snapshot of the assignment titles and instructors, even though I'm not a member of those other teachers' courses. This can help me make decisions when I'm planning my activities. So I might certainly not want to schedule that major project due on the 20th or the 21st if my students have an overload of other activities going on in all of their other courses. So take a look at the workload planning tool in your course. It might give you some really great insights to help you plan out when you want to schedule major projects, end of unit activities, or get-togethers. Well, that's all for this class. Here we are in the wrap-up. I hope through this class and information you've been able to feel comfortable and confident with where do students find their calendar, upcoming and reminder lists, when you might consider using dates for folders and not just for assignments and discussions. How is it that you can use those completion rules to give yourself that at-a-glance view of everyone and to give students their own individual progress monitor tool? When you might want to consider using the lock assignment option, and how you can plan with insight about your students' classwork and load across all of their other classes. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today for this Supporting Self-Regulation for Student Success. My name is Randy Hall, and you know where to reach me if you have any questions or curiosities. Don't forget, every day's a learning day.